Welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. This is episode 131, Understanding Alcohol and Your Health. Hi everyone. Once again, welcome to the Real World Nutrition Podcast. I am Shelley Rael, registered dietitian and the host of the Real World Nutrition Podcast and the founder of Real World Nutrition. Now, this month, April, as I'm recording this, is National Alcohol Awareness Month. So it's one of these opportunities where I want to talk about the relationship between alcohol consumption and health. Now, if you do not consume alcohol at all, this episode probably isn't going to be very informative for you as I talk about this, in part because you probably either already know this or it's wholly irrelevant to you. So I just want to make sure that I just address that at the beginning. So one of the things I want to mention here is that despite its social acceptance and cultural integration, we have alcohol consumption as part of not just our culture in the United States, but many cultures around the world. We want to acknowledge that alcohol is more than just a beverage that people consume. It is a toxin and it is a known carcinogen, especially when consumed in excess. So when I say a known carcinogen, I've used that term a lot. And somebody said to me one time, what is that? Well, it means something that we know for a fact can cause cancer. So that's what I mean about a known carcinogen. So I also want to emphasize here that this episode is really meant to inform and educate. It's not meant to disparage or judge anyone who consumes alcohol. I'm not going to talk about alcohol use disorder, what most people call alcoholism. That's not what this is about. It's about those individuals who choose to consume alcohol and know when to stop for the most part. And that'll become a little bit more clear as I go forward. So I just want to talk a little bit more about this concept of alcohol being a toxin. So when we talk about alcohol being a toxin, that means it does have harmful effects on the body. We know that, especially when consumed in large quantities or over prolonged periods. So this toxicity in alcohol primarily stems from the substance within alcohol, which is ethanol. That's the main psychoactive ingredient in alcoholic beverages. And those alcoholic beverages that have ethanol, this includes beer, it includes wine and hard ciders, as well as distilled spirits and any beverage with alcohol. So sometimes people think distilled spirits are worse than beer or wine. That's not accurate because they all contain ethanol. And that ethanol can damage cells and tissues, leading to a range of health issues. And this can include liver disease, liver damage, heart problems, and as I said already, an increased risk of cancer. So when somebody takes or you take a sip of an alcoholic beverage, that alcohol is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream through the walls of the stomach and the small intestine. So it really does not have to go through the digestion process. So most of the foods that we consume and beverages that may have calories has to go through this process of digestion with various enzymes that break it down in the stomach, and then it's absorbed in the small intestines, in various parts of the small intestines, where alcohol is one of those very few substances that humans consume that is directly absorbed in the stomach. So once it is absorbed into the bloodstream, it travels to the liver first, and that's what most nutrients do. Alcohol is not a nutrient, but it does do that. And that's where the majority of alcohol metabolism occurs. And there's enzymes in the liver that break down that ethanol into what's called acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is really a highly toxic substance that can cause damage to our DNA and other cellular harm. That acetaldehyde is an intermediary, and it is further metabolized into less harmful substances and then excreted from the body. But how long does this process take? Well, on average, it takes about 1 hour for the body to metabolize a standard drink. And that typically contains about 14 grams of pure alcohol, or this is about 12 ounces of beer. And that beer, I want to clarify, is that 5% ABV, or alcohol by volume, or 5 ounces of wine, which is about 12% ABV, or 1.5 ounces or 1 shot of 80 proof distilled spirits, which is about 40% alcohol. So those different volumes, the 12 ounces, the 5 ounces, the 1.5 ounces, you see they're different sizes or different volumes because some have a more concentrated form of alcohol. But in most cases, people aren't drinking 12 ounces of vodka or distilled spirits. They have 12 ounces and often more of beer. But if there's 1 beer and 1 shot of distilled spirits, that's the same alcohol content there. So I need to clarify, distilled spirits, that includes things like gin, rum, tequila, vodka, whiskey, and other similar types of alcohol like that. Some are going to have a little bit more calories if you're doing things like liqueurs, but I'm not really addressing calories today. Now, this is a common myth about sobering up. Like, how can you sober up? Well, a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't. Contrary to popular belief, there is no magic potion to sober up quicker or faster. The only way to eliminate alcohol from your system is time, nothing else. So that 1 hour per drink is key there. And attempts to accelerate this process, like drinking coffee or taking a cold shower, may provide an increase in alertness, but it does not help break down alcohol in the body any faster. So I want to address binge drinking as well. And binge drinking is not just for the college crowd. It tends to bring up ideas of spring break and college parties, but a binge episode it's far more than in that environment. A binge episode is typically defined as consuming a large amount of alcohol in a short period, leading to a rapid increase in blood alcohol concentration. So for men, binge drinking is often characterized by consuming 5 or more drinks within 2 hours. And for women, it's typically defined as 4 or more drinks in that same time frame. And binge drinking can have serious, immediate consequences, as a lot of people are aware: impaired judgment, blackouts, alcohol poisoning, and definitely an increased risk of accidents and injuries. Now, I want to mention briefly that there's 2 different recommendations, or I shouldn't say recommendations, but defining alcohol consumption, binge drinking, and that sort of thing related to men versus women is related to a physiological difference regarding one of the enzymes that is used to break down alcohol, and a difference between men and women. So it really does not have to do with body size. And a lot of people assume that, but there's plenty of men and women that are same body size, but the alcohol metabolism is still different because of that enzyme that helps break down alcohol. So effects of alcohol. So I've talked about what happens with binge drinking, but some of the short-term effects can vary depending on factors such as how much is consumed, individual tolerance, and overall health. So some common short-term effects include slurred speech, impaired coordination, slowed reaction times, altered mood or behaviors. And excessive drinking has these other physiological effects that can lead to dehydration, nausea, vomiting, and the symptoms of a hangover the next day. Unfortunately, the harm doesn't end after that single episode. Long-term alcohol consumption can wreak havoc on virtually every system in the body. Chronic heavy drinking can lead to liver disease, including fatty liver, hepatitis, and cirrhosis. But it can also contribute to heart problems, high blood pressure, digestive issues, weakened immune function, and neurological disorders. So I want to encourage responsible alcohol consumption. And what can we do to encourage promote responsible alcohol consumption during Alcohol Awareness Month and beyond? So I use these various opportunities to promote the education, but it is certainly a year-round thing. Well, here's some things I always encourage everybody to consider. Set your limits and stick to them. Know your personal limits and avoid exceeding them. And I know sometimes people get all into things and having such a great time, they exceed their limits. And really, it is so important that we not do this. Pace yourself. Sip your drink slowly. Alternate alcoholic beverages with water and other non-alcoholic options. I encourage people to eat before and while they are drinking because food certainly can help slow the absorption of alcohol and mitigate its effects. We hear this a lot, but plan ahead. Plan ahead. Arrange for a designated driver or alternative transportation if you'll be drinking away from home. And I think it's amazing that we have this opportunity to use a ride share now if you realize that you should not drive and you weren't really able to plan ahead. Then you went out with some friends or family or whatever the case may be, and you thought it was just going to be an easygoing time, and it ended up being a lot more partying than you had anticipated. And then be mindful of peer pressure. This sounds like it's very much a high school, college thing, but it's not. People still have peer pressure as full-grown adults. So don't feel obligated to drink more than you're comfortable just to fit in or please others. And additionally, this is really important for me to say this. It seems like it's common today to encourage others to also consume alcohol or ask why they choose not to drink. For one, this is their choice and it is nobody else's business to question or challenge it. Some people just don't want to. Some people don't like what it tastes like. And it's their right to not consume alcohol without having to feel harassed about it and answer 20 questions. So that's really all I have to say this week about alcohol awareness and the effects of alcohol on our overall health. It's really about, I know we hear this a lot, about drinking responsibly and enjoying it if you do drink and not overdoing it. It really has a significant impact on our overall health, and it can be really detrimental, whether it's short-term with some of the acute things that happen when we drink, or some of the long-term negative effects that can happen with chronic overconsumption or chronic alcohol use that some people think only affects people with alcoholism or alcohol use disorder. All right, everyone, that is it for this week's episode. I just want to encourage you to enjoy things in moderation, all things in moderation. And that is Real World Nutrition for this week. You take care and bye for now.